Hi everyone, my name is Selena. Thanks for watching, and today I'm going to be doing my June book haul. And yeah, I got lots of books at a library used sale, and then I got 2 books from Barnes & Noble and 1 book from Goodreads. So I'm just going to dive right in. Okay, from Goodreads I got this book, The Master Magician, and I don't know much about it. This is the 3rd book in a series, and I have not read the first 2 books, but I do know that it follows a female magician, and I don't read many books with magicians in it as the main characters, but the books that I have read feature female magicians. It does take place, I believe, in like a Victorian era type thing. I'm not sure if it's steampunk or not, but yeah, I thought it would be interesting to read a book about a female magician. Next up is the first book I got at Barnes & Noble, In a World Just Right by Jen Brooks. And this book follows a young man named Jonathan Aubrey, and he is in high school but facing many challenges with graduation and girls, and so he is not getting the things that he wants, or things aren't happening in the way that he would like, but he's able to recreate his own world. I have not read this yet. This is a debut novel, but what it seems like is that he can recreate worlds to better suit the things that he desires and the things that he wants. And I thought that was an interesting take on the multiverse, parallel universe thing that I see happening quite a bit in YA science fiction, just science fiction in general actually. So I'm kind of interested to see how this plays out. Plus the cover is beautiful. Then the second book from Barnes & Noble is a bind-up of C.S. Lewis's Space Trilogy. It has all 3 books. Out of the Silent Planet, Paralandra, and That Hideous Strength. I do like the cover. It's like space scene. There are no pictures or anything on the inside, it's just all text. But I do have each of these books individually, but I wanted to bind up. Then from the library book sale, I got this Penguin edition, this Penguin Classic edition of Cranford, written by Elizabeth Gaskell, and it has this cute little green tassel. And I read this book first in undergrad in the Victorian Lit class and really liked it. That was my first Elizabeth Gaskell book ever, but I think more people know her for North and South, which was adapted to a BBC miniseries that was fairly popular. Cranford was also adapted into a miniseries, I think starring Judi Dench, but I think it's less read because it's not a traditional Victorian novel. It's written in vignettes, so instead of telling a straightforward story with one main focus as like a protagonist, this book kind of tells little stories about people living in this town to tell a larger story about the community over many years. And I thought that was a very interesting way to tell a story, and again, I really liked this book, and I remember really liking it in undergrad, so I'm glad to have a really pretty copy now. Next, I picked up Voyage, The Voyage of the Narwhal by Andrea Barrett. Sorry, messed up the name. But this is like a seafaring voyage type novel about a ship going to the north and trying to find open polar sea, something like that. I don't read many sea voyage novels, so I'm hoping that this will pique my interest. Plus it had the word narwhal, and I like that word. I think it's fun to say. But it looked interesting just in the fact that it did have 2 perspectives. One of the crewmen on the ship that's trying to find this open polar sea, and then the perspective of a female. So it's part love story, part sea voyage, and hopefully it's interesting. Now, this next book I'm truly excited to read. This will be a book that I will read this summer, and I'm going to butcher the name because I don't know how to pronounce this, so I'm not going to bother. It's the name of a place in Saudi Arabia where this book takes place, and it's about 4 girls who live in this community in Saudi Arabia, and they are upper class, educated women, but the novel is about the conflicts and the struggles that they have living in their culture. This was originally published in Lebanon in 2005 in Arabic, so it was not intended for Western audiences, I believe, and it's been given a lot of talk, and a lot of circulation has gone on about this book. Some people say that it's some people say that it's sacrilege. Some people say that it's improper and indecent because it sheds light and lays bare the secret lives of women in this community. But then other people say that it's a great book and that it was courageous. It uses emails that this woman writes after her prayers on Friday and starts to go from there to open up the conversations between these four women using these email about what's going on in their lives. I believe they do travel outside of Saudi Arabia, but most of the events takes place in Saudi Arabia. And this is a debut novel from this author, so I'm excited to get into this book. Next up is a nonfiction book that I picked up by Edward Dolnick, and it is The Clockwork Universe, and it's about Isaac Newton and the British Royal Society, I think. What is it? The Royal Society and the British modern world. It's about their invention and their little community of scientists during the 1700s, and I thought it would be a great way to get into nonfiction. I believe this was written for young adult audiences to read, so hopefully the science won't be over my head, but I am excited to get into this. This is my attempt at broadening my reading horizons because I don't read a lot of nonfiction, so I want to try to read some more. Now, this book is also quite interesting, and I'm excited to get into this. This will be a summer read for me, by Ursula K. Le Guin. It's Earthsea, a Wizard of Earthsea. I think this is the first book in the Earthsea series, and yeah, there are a couple, I think there's 6 altogether. You can see them back here. But I hear so many people talking about Ursula K. Le Guin as a great writer in the fantasy genre, and I've never read a single book by this woman, and I think that that's a travesty. So I'm ready to rectify that by reading this book and hopefully getting into an awesome fantasy series. Next up is a book that I do have individual copies for, but I got this pretty nice paperback bind-up of N.K. Jemisin's The Inheritance Trilogy. So the books in this trilogy include The 100,000 Kingdoms, The Broken Kingdoms, The Kingdoms of God, and The Awakened Kingdom. I think The Awakened Kingdom was like a novella or some sort of shorter work, but I'm not quite sure. Please don't quote me on that. But I do have the first 3 books individually on my shelf already, but I do like to have a bind-up, as you already can tell from my C.S. Lewis books. But yeah, so I thought this was really pretty cover. And this is another author that I've been trying to get into. I just haven't started reading the book. But I don't know why, but I need to. I need to do this. I need to do it now. And then the last 2 books I got in Connecticut, but they were at like a fair, and at this fair there was a table of Connecticut authors, and so I went over there and I got 2 books. The authors were there talking and trying to promote their books. And so the first one I got is The Legend of Agua. I think it's The Legend of Agua. And the tag reads, a powerful sorcerer, a brutish warrior, and a young woman forced into a life of thievery. So there are these crystals or these stones that are embedded, I believe, in weapons, and because they are stolen, then they're cursed, so the weapons do bad things or something like that. I'm not 100% sure, but I did speak to the author, and he did pitch it to me in, I think, those terms. I'm probably butchering this, but it's a fantasy story that I think I'm going to enjoy. Hopefully I will enjoy, and it looks like it's something that I can read fairly quickly. And the last book that I am going to show you is Just What I Always Wanted by Nancy Roman, and this book did sound extremely interesting to me. It's about a 50-year woman who was able to retire early, and so she decides to adopt because in her retirement she gets slightly bored and she wants a change in her life, and so she decides to adopt. But when she adopts, she ends up with a 15-year-old pregnant woman, and 15-year-old pregnant teenager, and so now her life is kind of turned on its head, and it's the struggle and the relationship that develops between these 2 women. So those are all the books that I got in June. Please let me know down below the books that you received in June. If you've read any of the books that I've shown you, please, without spoiling me, just let me know what you thought about the book. And yeah, I just want to talk to you guys. Bye.